And we are ready to begin. And we are so pleased you're here. We have waited for you your entire lives. You will understand that today. And we will say that this has been challenging because we've given Roger so much information and we've gone through so many things over the last several days because we knew that it was important for all of you to understand this today, which is why we said you will understand more tomorrow, because typically you only accept certain things about yourselves at given times within your evolutionary journey. But we will say that all of you are here now to make a marvelous contribution to your world, except you haven't known how you were going to do that. And the way that you're going to do that is by becoming yourself. And that is what you're up to now. Your world is going through a change, and they were waiting for you to show up to make a difference. It's not accidental the way that you see your world right now. It was waiting for your energy to come in. You move through evolutionary times in your world as long as your planet has existed, where you change things. And you change things because it would help things become more, evolve, and enter into a new dimension, which is what you're doing. You're all ascending to a new dimension. So that's why it's felt really uncomfortable. And you have known this, but you have known something more. You have memories, you have histories, you have ancestral leanings that you brought into the world. So you came into the world with baggage, you see, and the baggage is what you wanted to drop. Because if you drop your baggage, you accomplish your goal of helping your world change and helping its restructuring, as we've told you. That is what is happening. That's why it seems so different. Nothing is going to be the same. And not attempting to hold on to who you were, who you used to be, what your old life was, is not going to serve you. And this is why many of you are suffering in different ways. You're suffering emotionally, spiritually, financially, because you have denied who you are. And Roger has been the biggest culprit. And we will tell you why. Because he knew that he had to bring this work here, but it was too frightening. Which is what many of you have experienced. You feel something within you, but you think, no, it can't be me. I can't do that. That's too much. I can't help this. I don't have that much power. And that is exactly the opposite of who you are. You came to expand, to evolve. Everything that we gave you in 2012 was to prepare you for this time. We told you throughout everything that you have this physical life experience so that you can expand your soul. And if you are willing to do that, you change your world. That's what happens. And it goes on generational. You have always existed, as we've said, you're eternal spiritual beings, but you come into the world at very specific times to help your evolution, because you each have your own evolutionary journey that you're meant to follow, meaning that you're breaking through your lineage, your links, your restrictions, and all of that to bring something new into your world so that the world continues. Now, it's not guaranteed. As we've said, the world that you want to see is not guaranteed. And the reason we have amped things up is because the world has shifted, and none of you, or many of you, are not paying attention to what is occurring. And others are. So the balance of your world is what needed to change. And that balance is what many of you call light or dark, or good or evil, whatever terms you use as humans. However, what you're always doing is coming back to oneness. And this is what we wanted you to understand. And that oneness is within you. That oneness exists in each person, and you all have it. But when you forget that over decades and eons, then what you have is a world that looks like it does now, and where you're not taking care of your planet, as we've talked about so often. If you were to go back and listen to every recording that we have given you over the last almost more than a year, actually, because we began before, but if you were to listen to all of those, you would see that everything that is happening in your world externally, we have told you. We've said that this would be coming up, and we did that because we didn't want you to have the kind of fear that is coming up now. And you've moved into another place today, actually, where there will be a little bit more of that. But if you're centered and anchored into who you are and the rightness of yourself, you will move beyond that with calmness, with understanding, and with love of yourself. And that's where we must begin, which is why we said you deserve more. We knew back in 2012, what you would be moving through, and that would be challenging, and you would have all of these things that you would have to endure. But as you did that, you gained value, you gained worth, and it was meant to be expressed now, because then you shift the balance of your world, which is greatly needed. And you've seen that. You don't like what you're seeing out there. And we mean out there because you're creating it by your denial of accepting who you are, you see, and accepting the wonderful spirit that you have come to be. We have told you repeatedly that not every soul is doing the same path. Yours is what you meant to live. That's what we wanted. All the work that we have given you, many other guides out there are working on other things and other aspects, but we had one specific thing that we were doing, and that was to cause you to be prosperous, to cause you to own yourself so that you could bring in the kind of wealth that was needed to help more of those who have not had it over generations. That's why we said this is a generational change. And so you come in with the limitations that you have each picked up through your DNA, your individual DNA, and it's connected to your ancestors that go far back beyond what you can possibly know. You don't have a memory of what happened in your world millions of years ago. You can't even have a concept that existed. But Roger has a memory that goes far back, which is why we've told you that, but he denies it. You all do this. You hold yourselves back because you get this wonderful information, and it's all intuitive. It's all your guide speaking to you. But then you say, no, that couldn't be me. And it is you. Because the more of you who understand that, you see, you come together in this collective and you manifest this cumulative energy that is so powerful that you could shift your world and could be different tomorrow. That's how powerful you are, because it's all energetic. And that's why we gave you everything in 2012 to talk about your energies, that's where your power is. It's not out there, it's within you. But what has happened is you have not changed your mind, because that's the only place you experience anything. You experience who you are in your world by the way you choose to think. We have given you ways of changing your perception, which is reframing it so that you could put it into a different light. And we meant to use light because that's what you have. And we know that you have that because you would not be listening to us if that were not true. And it's going to be a wonderful time for you, despite what you see out in the world, if you decide to go inside and own who you are. And part of that is shifting your awareness, shifting your mind into accepting abundance. This is what we've keep talking about, and you will see it more and more throughout your world. Now it's changing. And so there are those who have been doing things in your world, and you can see it, and it's going to be exposed more, where they have been holding on to this inordinate amount of wealth because they thought it made it more powerful. And if you do that over centuries, eons actually, you end up with a world that is depleted of all of its resources, and especially yours. Yeah, that's what happens. You deplete yourself. And so you each have different ways that you hold yourselves back. And that's why we gave you the work to work through all of those. It's different for each of you, however, but it's connected generationally. And that's what we want you to understand. You come to the planet and you live in different countries. You take on different ethnicities, you take on different sexualities and genders, and you switch them up, and you do all of that, and you do them in different lifetimes. This particular lifetime, you chose a one that would serve your evolutionary journey. It would serve you to understand why you chose this body, why you chose this place to live, why you chose this particular time. And it was to move through some restriction, some limitation that has existed within your soul family, not just within you and not just within this lifetime, but it has existed forever. And so the other night we awakened Roger in the middle of the night, because that's the best time where he can hear things, and probably for you as well. And if you're having those times where you're waking up in the middle of the night, your guides are trying to get your attention. It's nothing to be afraid of, but it is something for you to listen to. And so what we did was he it was, nothing happens accidentally. We're going to explain this because each of you think that you're doing things just like happenstance, and it's not happening. It's not that. It's you're being guided and directed, and sometimes you listen and sometimes you don't. That's all that it is. It's all that it ever is. And so he had the idea to listen to, just didn't know why he even picked this up. He said, let me listen to a video on Atlantis. He didn't know why. And then he's listening, then he hears Plato. Now, he doesn't remember this yet because he will when he goes back, because when he started doing this work, we gave him a hint because he has a quote from Plato that's right on the first work that he started to do, but he forgot that. Many of you forgot your leanings, you see, because you have connections to every soul that has ever existed. And if you were to believe that, which we told you in the beginning of the work that we gave you, we said you have infinite intelligence and you all have access to it. Now it depends on how far you want to go back, and you won't have a very vivid memory of anything, but you have feelings, you have these emotional threads, these energetic threads that are connected throughout time. There is no exception to that. And that's why the Akashic records become such a great tool for you all to use to understand your origins and how you're placed in the world at a time where it would serve the world, you see, and your journey as well. Now, Roger had his readings done, but you haven't seen all of it yet. And so that's because he's been holding back like you have been. You all have done that. You've been holding back. And this is the time where we said you must change that. And that's why we put out the message. He didn't even know why we were having him do this, but we sent this morning, we sent out a message saying the beginning is now. We want you to change your ideas about linear time because you think that's how things are happening, and that holds you back, you see, because you could change your mind today and have a different world tomorrow. Now, you don't believe that because you haven't practiced it, but that is the work that we gave you to practice so you could develop the belief and the ability to do that, because you can. And you could change it in any way that you wanted to. But we know that you wanted to change it into a much more loving place, and you have to start with yourself. You have to start with loving yourself and letting go of all the things that you thought you did wrong. Now, in our work that we gave you, everything was about going back and looking at your life and all of your experiences and changing your ideas about them, meaning changing what you interpreted, because you have a very limited human awareness of what is happening in your life and what is happening in the world. And you look at the world, you think it's falling apart, and it's not. It's coming together, and it was just waiting for you to do it. That's really what's going on. And the more of you who believe that, then you start to shift, and it happens faster. Now, the world has already changed. It's already gone into the place where it's going to be. Your world has already done that. However, you might suffer so much more because of your unwillingness to move and go into that unknown of yourselves and access everything that you are. And so we thought we'd give you a little more hint as to why our work was effective and why Roger was using and why it changed him, because we had him, and when he looked at that Atlantis video, which he didn't know why he was doing, he heard the word Plato. And so we said, we told you this many, many years ago, but you can only understand it now. And so when he went back and he started seeing some ideas about Plato, then he went to another video where he saw two people discussing something, and he said, why do I understand this? You all have had those experiences where you will hear information coming from somewhere. You think you're going to a lecture or to hear a influencer or a mentor or a guru or whoever it might be, and it resonates with you. The reason it resonates is because you have a memory, and it's just awakening you to your memory. That's all we do as well, is we awaken you to your memory, and it depends on how quickly you're going to accept that. And again, we want to go back to your age, because you have all of these ideas about where things should happen in your lives because of your chronological age, which has absolutely nothing to do with your evolutionary journey, as we've said many, many times. And so for Roger, as we've said, his was to go through all kinds of trauma in his early life, which was more than you can possibly imagine. And he worked through it because that gave him the skills, you see, to understand how to help more of you. But that's only because you're going to do the same thing. You're going to pass this on. And this is how generational changes occur, that you decide that you're going to embrace the other parts of you that you have yet to do. And that is ascension, as we've said. Now, you don't understand this because it only shows up to give you awareness at the time that it's right in your life, in your journey. And we know that for many of you, that time is now. You wouldn't be hearing us, but you've cut off yourselves because you didn't think you were enough. You didn't, we love using that imposter syndrome thing, which is, we said it never has existed, but it was just an excuse that you've used to hold yourselves back, only because this is not a judgment. It's only because it's a typical human behavior to be afraid of the unknown because you don't know it and you want to feel safe. And you're not going to be able to do that now because the world has shifted. This shift has been coming for quite a while because it was needed, as we've said. There was a balance that needed to change. There was a reason that we gave you the United States. And none of you understood that, and Roger didn't, and he just reluctantly wrote down the words that we sent to him because he knows that it always comes out to be valid eventually, even though he doesn't understand it. Even that is what happens for you, each of you. You have things that happen, and then you don't quite understand them. Then you look back in hindsight, and then it's, oh, that's what it was, and it makes sense. This is why we've been sending you these messages where we use specific dates, because we know as humans, you need these kind of tangible things to see. So we thought that if you would see that we gave you on this date, this is what we've used with Roger, if you see that we gave you this information on this date, maybe you would believe that you are connected and have been here and you're these eternal spiritual beings, which you keep working on, you see. That's what humanity does all the time. That's all you're working on, every civilization you're working on. Can we become more? And the more of you who do that, then you start to shift your world. Your planet will only survive, and we do mean that literally. It would only survive when more of you decide that you wanted to. And the way that you do that is by owning who you are, because you have equal ability to every other soul that has ever existed. We've told you there are no hierarchy of souls. You have just made that up in your minds. That's all. And because you've done that and you've carried it through, it's not your fault. You brought it in with you. As we said, you had the baggage. Now is the time you were meant to drop the baggage, because then you will cause a shift in your world. Now, you've lived before where you've been some of the other people, as we've said, that you don't like and you don't agree with and you think are terrible and all of that. You've done that. But this time you're doing something different, you see? And this is the light that you wanted to bring. And that light is so bright, but you've been dimming it by not owning who you are, or thinking that you did something wrong, or thinking that you were being punished because of all the things that you went through. No, you accepted those things because you wanted to move through them, because when you move through them, you add an energy into your world that is so expansive and wonderful and beautiful, because you decided to take on trauma. That's what happens. You decided, you agreed to that. And then when you move through it, there's this glorious awareness that comes to you that is energy, that is powerful, and you put that into your world and everything expands. That's what happens. And that's where you are now. And you're sitting there right now. Now you're going to see this played out in your world, because there are going to be legal issues that are going to come up with those who have been attempting to hold on to everything which has gone on. It's part of their generational journey as well. They've carried that. You carry things from civilization to civilization. And unless you are willing to examine them, which many times you're not, but unless you're willing to examine them, you can't change them. So everything that we have given you is an examination, a way to examine things that could give you more clarity, that would give you more power, to access more power. Actually, you've always had it. You just don't access it all the time. And so everything we gave you was to have that occur. Now, we gave Roger the program. We told him, okay, now you have to change it. And we want you to put it out, and we want you to make it a year, because that's how long you're going to be moving through this transition, because none of you move very quickly, you see. And so we know how stubborn you can be, and how long it takes you to understand how brilliant you are and how much you have to offer the world. So we said, well, let's just put it out there. But he still has his hangups, and he's struggling with how much should he charge, because see, he knows you each have these issues that you must understand where they came from. They are generational, as we've said, and he knows that he has these ideas that have existed within his lineage that was like, you don't deserve enough. You don't deserve this. You can't have this. It was only for these people. No, but see, that's why you're here, to change that. And you can't change that unless you're willing to acknowledge it and then do something deliberate to cause that, to allow that change to manifest. You see, it's not just, it's, yes, it is your mind, but you decided to have a physical life experience, meaning that you wanted to experience everything on this physical level, you see, and you can only do that through action. That action is you going out and saying, this is who I am. This is what I want. Yes, it's okay. And it's worth something and it's valuable. See, because what the work we gave you, we had a very specific goal, was to lead you to becoming your authentic self. Because then what happens is that the love that you have that is within you comes into the world. That's all. Because we know you have this benevolent part of you, or you all do. Every soul is born with that. You don't always access it, but every soul is born with it. So the nature of who you are is this benevolent, loving being. And you, and many of you have cared so much about everyone else except yourselves. And that's what Roger has done. And he has to break that. And he knows that. And we've told him many, many times, but sometimes you have these restrictions that are heavy and they're so ingrained, and they've been in your, and when you think of linear time, they've been around for centuries actually, but you know, from what you can remember. And so you're in a place, a very specific place in the movement of your world, the trajectory of your planet, where change was necessary for it to continue to evolve. This is why you are alive. You came to offer this information. You came to offer yourself and your loving being, and you can only do that when you start to let go of your self-judgment. And the action part of this was accepting abundance. And we mean that exactly as it is, because if you don't accept it, the others will keep taking it. That's all. That's the balance that is being changed now, which is why we keep talking about it. And you're going to hear many others talking about the same thing. We had Roger speak about the other entrepreneurs out there who are doing the same sort of similar work, because they know that what is happening is that you are moving through this generational, this change in your world. And the more people who become empowered, then you have a different balance, because you're not going to be fighting with one another. You're not going to be going out and trying to kill other humans. That's what's going to happen. And that's what our work was, like, to bring you into this place of loving yourself. It's just the most blissful, beautiful place you can ever imagine, because you're not fearful anymore. You don't hate yourself, because you've gone through a process of understanding and then forgiveness. See, the forgiveness is you forgiving yourself for not understanding how brilliant you were, for not understanding that the process of coming to excellence is one that in physical form goes through periods of change. That's all. And as we said in the work, we gave you progression. And the reason we gave you progression was because we wanted you to understand, because you beat yourselves up so much because you think you haven't gotten to where you're supposed to be, or you haven't done something and all that. No, you haven't, but you're always doing it. And it becomes more as you add your energy to whatever it is that you're doing, and your belief. The belief is the thing that you have all lacked. And Roger was the greatest one. He had the belief, but he also had the fear. We're going to tell you this because he wasn't going to bring it up, but he knew that he had something, but he said, wait a minute, if I do this, I'm going to have to talk to people. I'm going to have to be seen. That's why we kept mentioning Jim Carrey, you know, your actor, Jim Carrey, who said the problem with most people is they don't want to be seen. And that is true for all of you, and it was especially true for Roger, because he knew if he was to show what he had and what he had developed and what he can do, that it might bring too much to him. And as crazy as that sounds, that's exactly what goes on, because your consciousness was still oriented into some old behavior, into some old familiar patterns of family and generational beliefs that needed to be let go so that you can create the new world. And that's why you're here. And each of you are doing that, and you're doing it in your own unique way. And that's the part that's been troubling for you, because you haven't thought, maybe my thing is not important enough. Yes, it is. because the thing that's important is your essence, it's your energy. It's never about anything physical that you're doing. It's never about that. It's what you're doing energetically that changes everything. We talk about the money so much because it doesn't, you only use it in physical on this plane, but it is important, you see, because you're still in human physical form. And because of that, you will use that as a measure of developing your soul. That'll take a while for you to understand, but you will. Because as you've heard, you develop these things as humans that you keep carrying around. You can't take it with you. You say that so, easily, but you don't understand what it really meant. Everything physical stays on the physical plane. You do not. You ascend, you go to different places. And so this is part of your preparation in going into the new era of your life and of your world. You see, it has to be looked at in that way. You're moving into something that's going to be better, that's going to be more wonderful for you, what you wanted. It's going to be more inclusive. It's going to be more equal. That's what it is. But it can't get there unless you decide to become who you're meant to be. That's all. And so we understand. We examined the registration. We know that many more will see it after this, but we just wanted to start from who we saw on the registration of this particular thing. And so there's several of you who have had these ideas that, oh, I'm not doing quite enough. I'm not that important. And my little thing that I'm doing in this particular work is not going to be that, oh, wait a minute, I'm doing something different. And that may not be accepted by everyone else because this is really different and nobody's doing it this way. That's exactly what you're supposed to do. You're supposed to do something that's different. You're supposed to be innovative. You're supposed to take what came before, as we said, in infinite intelligence, because you have access to it. You take it and you put your stamp on it and you bring it back into the world. And that's the most loving thing you could possibly do, except you keep judging yourself about it. It's not good enough. No, somebody else did it better. None of that is ever true. You made it up, which is why we said everything you do is in your perceptions and in your mind. Roger wasn't willing to talk about us for the longest time. You must understand this, and this is why it's so challenging, and he's held himself back, and as we've told you many, many times, he does it because if he doesn't have enough money, then he'll start to talk a little bit more. You each have something that you use to hold yourselves back. It might be a relationship, and you keep repeating the same relationship because you know they're terrible. Sounds crazy, doesn't it? But that's what you've done. Because see, if you keep repeating the same horrible relationship, you don't have to experience who you are. And that's the thing that most of you fear, is understanding your importance and your brilliance and what you came to bring to the world. And that's what Roger's done, because he said, no, this is going to be egotistical. This is going to sound like it's too much. And you each do that. And we're saying you're supposed to be too much. You're supposed to sound that way because you have it. You have everything within you. Now, we understand that you have human bodies and you operate in the realms and the laws of your human bodies, which means that there's a time period that is involved because you're still operating on linear time. And that time period says that, okay, I can accept this much about myself and let me live with that for a little bit. Now I feel okay. Okay, now, but there's more. So let me accept that. That's the process. You're always in that process because it's eternal. Which is why you said that you're going to have doubt all the time. But that's a good thing, because when you have doubt, it's uncomfortable, and maybe that'll get you to move. Because then when you move into who you are, you say, oh, the doubt was not necessary. It's never necessary, but you use it to motivate yourselves at times, exactly as you use fear. Because fear will get you to move because it's uncomfortable, that fight, flight, or fight kind of thing. You have been fleeing. That's what's been going on. But now, even though we don't want to use the word fight, but that is a bit of what you need to do, which is this warrior spirit that you're going to bring into owning who you are, so you can start to feel powerful, you see, because there are many of you who have come into this and you take these spiritual paths, And you think that that will preclude you from looking at your real world. And no, it doesn't, because you want it to be in the physical world, which means everything that's going on, you wanted to be a part of, because you knew if you saw it, it would cause you to access another part of who you were. You knew that if you saw something you didn't like, you could put your energy into it and change it. And it's going to be different for each of you, because you have different things that you're working on, but it's unique and it's powerful and it's necessary and it's needed in the world now, no matter what you have thought about yourself. What we did, and we want you to understand this because we've given you several message about this. We gave it all to you in 2012, which many of you have trouble understanding why it happened then, but there was a change, a trajectory change there, which we were a part of, and we told you that's why we said wait until now, but this is the now that we meant. And that's why we said this morning, we gave you the message, the beginning is now, because this is when you meant to open up to everything that you are and bring it into the world and expand. Because if you do that, you change your world. Now you think that you can't do that, and yes, you can. Because if the more of you come together, because that was the purpose of all of this. The purpose of all of this restructuring is to get more of you to come together. And everything that has happened, including, as we've said before, your pandemic, that wasn't to get you to fight. That was to get you to come together and look at everything. Your physical bodies don't last. You must understand that. So it's something else. And we've given you this wonderful example in Roger, because the person in many of you have had this, and we're going to explain it to you, because he came in and he went through so many physical things. Many of you have judged yourself because of your physical ailments. You've carried those in from other lifetimes and from other things that you've experienced, and they were purposeful for your evolutionary journey, because then when you move through them, you put something else into the ethers, into the universe, that is going to help others who have come before change. We know that doesn't make sense, but that's because of your restrictions in linear time, but you'll understand it soon. Because see, what you change now, you even change it for your family. You change it for your parents and your grandparents who have gone. You do. Because if you decide, because it's all energetic, you don't understand that, because you only live in this one plane of existence, and you can only see that. Now, we have been giving Roger this information. We're going to talk about this because you each have done this to a certain degree, but we've been giving him this information for so long, and we've told you how he tried to hide it for years, for many, many, many years. You've done the same thing. He said, I can't tell people who I am and what I really believe about myself or what I might do. They would think I'm crazy. You've done that. No, you're not. You were supposed to do it. It just takes a little while in terms of your time where you accept it. And as we said, you do it a bit at a time. But now is the time that you meant to do it. Now, the reason we said that you deserve more, because we knew what you have gone through. We know what you've experienced. It's not just about the last few years. We know those have been challenging, and there'll be another one, as we said, there'll be a little bit more. But when you move through it, you come to this place of this wonderful exhilaration that you experience, and you live in that state of bliss, as you might think of it, but that doesn't truly happen, but it feels that way to you as in your human experience. There's so much more that you do not understand about your world. There's a vast universe out there that you've never seen that you're starting to get a little bit more of now. And as we said, when you develop your new telescope, that you're able to see more into what has existed, and it awakens some memories in many of you, and especially in Roger, because he has this memory, as we said. When we took him back to Plato, we want you to understand, we want to go back, because he will get off track, you see, because it's a little way of him denying what he knows. If he doesn't have to talk about it, then he can deny that he knows. We're saying that because you've done that too. And this is why you've held back saying certain things, because you think, oh, well, they may not understand, because we know you have memories of why you're here. You have memories of your greatness. You have memories of everything about you. But then when they come up, you start to push them away. And that's what he was doing. So we took him back, and he could see that he was connected to, and he had this information to know that you had a world where you did not hate one another. You did not fight. You did not kill. You did not do any of that. And it was shared more equally, because you knew that you were trying to figure out a way of creating a world that where more could survive and prosper and share. That was then. But then you got off track, you see. because then you start using those ideas that you discovered to control others. And you've done it, and you did it with different races and different genders. You've done that. And we've talked about the women, and that's why the feminine energy is more important in your world now. And each of you have to adjust. Well, many of you have to embody more of that. Some of you have had much of that right now, and you need to bring in more of your masculine energy so you can become that warrior and live your lives the way you were meant to. So it's about you figuring out that balance that's within you, because wherever you are, it will add to your world. But you have to decide that you're going to look at it and bring it in. That's really what it is. There are no limitations to what you can do. None of you. And if you do them together, it's become so powerful. And we just keep trying to impress upon you the importance of this time and the energy that's available and why you're here. Because if you understand and accept that, you will affect a change in your world that you will see much quicker than you ever believed. All the events that are happening, because they're going to be more, okay, you're going to have to choose, as we said. Now, it feels to you as if you are choosing this, you will be choosing this side, so to speak. But the side is within you. That's what it is. But you will have to choose. And you have those who are not going to want to look at the truth of themselves. They're not going to want to look at what they could possibly offer in a benevolent, loving way. But they are doing that to be an example for you, because you've probably done that in other lifetimes as well. So you can't judge them. And that is the thing that you must let go of now. All of you, the entire collective, must begin to let go of your judgment, because you've never understood what was happening in terms of the evolution of your world. So your judgment is completely meaningless, because it's only from your current level of awareness, and that is always limited, you see. So you only let through a bit at a time. And so when we looked at Plato, then we went back and we saw, wait a minute, oh, so he was connected to everyone else that we have mentioned throughout our talks with you, you see? But we just went back further, because we gave you some of the people that we said we put into our work, so that you could understand, because those are the ones that you have a little more relevance to, because they're not as long gone in your linear time, and you can remember them. Some of you may have studied them or whatever, but that is what has gone on. But you're in a place now of magnificent change, but you are the one who has to do it. And we're saying that because it's each of you, you have that much power. And the more that you begin to accept that and work with it, you change everything. And as we said, your power, it's not about going out and fighting or getting anything. That's what other people do in human form, because they think that is going to make them more important. And it never does, because that's not your soul. That's not what was wanted. You're attempting to get back to God. You're attempting to get back to Gaia, to the universe, whatever it is. That's what you're always doing. And this coming together means that you are the one who must do that. We're putting the responsibility on you because we know you can handle it. How's that? We know that you can do it because you have that much power. You just accept it a little bit at a time, but that's okay, because time really doesn't matter. It really doesn't, because that's you're going to start to discover. However, you did want this experience, this physical, this existence on the physical plane. You wanted this so you could move through things, and this one is heavy. And the reason it's heavy, because you wanted a big change within your evolution, which means getting down deep into who you are and deciding to let go of all your crap. That means everything you've told yourself that was wrong. Everything you thought you had done that you messed up. You didn't. You were just learning. You were developing more. We've said for many times that you were being prepared. You were being prepared for this time in your world and in your life experience. That's all that's gone on. And so it's just a process of moving through that a bit at a time. And so when you look at all the things, all the people that we have given you in our work, you will see that it's an accumulation of wisdom and knowledge that has existed throughout the ages, because sometimes you think that you can't use that, but you're supposed to. You're supposed to use that and put your stamp on it, you see? It wasn't possible, Roger, to take our work with all the 40 years of study he's done with everything and not put his energy into it. That's what you're each meant to do with what you are doing, whatever is in front of you. If you feel connected to that, it's the most powerful thing in the world that you could possibly do if you decide to love it and keep developing it. That's all it is. But then you get afraid and then you'll start to give up. And like with Roger, he usually gives up when there's not enough money. Some of you do that too. You think, oh, this isn't going to work. And then you have these others who are going to keep asking you about it. Have you made the money yet? Are you rich yet? No. And the reason that hasn't happened is because of your reluctance to accept who you are. Your reluctance to understand your value and why you deserve more now. We did not make that up accidentally. We made that up because we knew that you had put in so much. You have suffered, you've gone through, you've been sad, you've been depressed, you've been ill, you've lost people, you've gone through so much so that you could develop this beautiful spirit that could come into the world now and offer an entirely new energy that would shift your world in beautiful ways that you can't even imagine, you can't see, but we can see it. This is why we started saying we knew where you would be. And so, but more than 2 years ago, we kept giving you the tagline at the end of our messages, you will be fine. Because we knew the fear that would be coming up. And you look at things and you can't understand it. Why is everything falling apart? It isn't. It's causing you to come together. That's the point of it. And again, we're going to keep doing our work. Now, we can't cause you to move. We can't tell you to do that. It's always an individual choice. As we've said, we can take you back and use Roger as an example, and all the times that he was given clues as to who he could be. And the one that was the most prominent was in 2005 when we said he had the dream. You each have had the dream. It's your dream. Whatever it was, you had it and you saw it, but then you started putting it away and said, no, I can't do that. It can't be me. And it is. And we told you about his, where he was supposed to be a leader, a spiritual leader. And he didn't know, I can't do that. I'm going to go away. Because see, that would have been him being seen again. When you are not willing to be seen, that means you have not come into a place of total self-acceptance. All the work that we have given is about total self-acceptance. Now, we would say something else because many of you will see this later because it kind of shocked you. We moved him into this place yesterday and he had to do this work and he shot all of these videos and he looked at them and he says, this looks different. They feel different. Why is that different? It's because he started to accept who he was. That's all. And he was willing to talk about it. You all have to do that. And that is total self-acceptance. Nothing is wrong with you. Nothing is bad about you. It was what you came in and you accepted and you wanted, because if you were to use it in the correct way, you would manifest this brilliant life. And that was the only goal that we had for all of you, is to understand this. And so that you could be the key, you could be the integral part of causing your world to evolve and your life, because that's why you're here. You were born to live this magnificent life where you had everything that you wanted, where you were never wanting for anything at all. And all it takes is you deciding to believe that, to understand it, and to accept who you are. That's all. Accepting, and it's a process, as we said, because you're in physical form, so it has to be that, because you have to use your human apparatus to cause that to accomplish, to cause that to manifest, and that's what we've given you. That's why we gave you our work in that particular way, so that you could do it incrementally, so you could evolve and come into who you are. That's what's happening. This is the best time ever for you to do that. And we picked this day because energetically things change. And there are other things that are going to happen, and you'll see later in your news, if you watch that, if you are paying attention to any of this, you'll see it later. There's going to be this fighting that's going on, but you're going to have this elevated sense of who you are, and you're going to see beyond that a little bit. It'll still affect you because you have to go through this. However, you will start to see beyond the chaos, as we gave you in 2012. We said chaos always breeds unity, eventually. Because see, you get tired of the chaos, and then you let go a bit more, and then you go into the love. And the love that we wanted you to understand is the love of yourself and allowing yourself to have everything that you deserve, because you've gone through so much and it is here now. And you have to start changing your brain so that you can allow law of attraction to bring to you everything that you deserve, because you've worked for it. You've put in so much. And this has nothing to do with how old you are. Again, it is only in this particular moment of now where you were meant to experience it, because it was the right time on your evolutionary journey. Otherwise, you wouldn't be hearing us. And we're just going to keep saying it to you, because eventually you will believe it and act on it. Because that's what we've done with Roger. We had to keep pushing him. We had to keep breaking it down. That's with each of you, breaking down your resistance to becoming who you are. We made a statement the other thing. It says ridiculous. The other night, we had him send out something. Well, all we're trying to do is force you to become happy. That's what it is. We're trying to force you to become happy, because see, you do that when you accept who you are. That's what happens. But it's a process, because you've been telling yourself, and you've had so much else programmed into you for many, many years, that it just takes, you have to be patient, which is why we gave you, practice patience and persistence. But we're at the place now where you can start to let go of so much more, merely by deciding that you're going to allow yourself to prosper. And we're going to say it again, because we want you to understand, you're going to see so much more of this. You're going to see it in your banks. You're going to see it in your financial systems. You're going to see it in so much. And that's why they're talking about a recession. You don't have to have it unless you want to, but that's what's going on. So if you decide that I'm going to begin to accept, to allow this energetic flow of abundance to come into my life, then that's exactly what will happen. And and then the more of you who do this collectively, then you start taking care of things. You'll start to even change your weather. You will, because you've made some great progress in there. We told you about it. And so you saw what happened in the United States, where they, for the first time in there, they did something to directly start to deal with the climate change that so many had ignored. And we said over a year ago, we asked you to please start burning down your planet. Do you think we had something to do with that? We did. And so did you, because you took the thought, you see. The thought was there, and that manifests, and it goes across any bounds, any boundaries or countries or continents that you might think of. It goes everywhere. But you have to, belief is the thing that you're always lacking, and belief typically comes with hindsight. Now, we want to say the reason that we have been give you this, we want you to understand. And if you go back and see any of our messages over the last several months, you'll see we did this repeatedly. And if you listen to any of the recordings, you'll hear everything that we gave you, that you can see happening in your world. However, what we want to say now is that we gave you this particular time, and we've used all those dates in the past so that you could see your connectedness to your divine plan. You see, because when you start thinking in terms of, oh, I had this at this time and then it's repeating, there's something in there for you to understand, to let go of, so that you can become your best self. That's all that we've ever given you. That's all the work that we ever wanted you to understand, so that you could get to this place of loving who you are in the deepest level, where you have no more, you won't need forgiveness. We know we gave you that many years ago. None of you would remember it, but it's that you get to this place where you no longer need forgiveness, because you understand that everything that you had judged yourself for was what you wanted, because you couldn't come to know who you are now if you hadn't gone through that. That's what it is. And so we want you to really think about this and listen to some of the other messages that we've given you. It'll have it all make sense in terms of where you are in your life now and where your world is now, because you've moved into a new place. And even though it will keep working, because it'll get a little treacherous for a while, but then it's going to be so great when you let go of your resistance to becoming your best self. And that's what we're going to give you today. And we want to see, we don't know if anyone is here, if there are any questions or anyone has something they want to ask, but we're open to that.
Okay, I'm going to bring you into the room, and you will be free to ask questions. I'm sending out the invitations now.
We are so pleased that you're here, because those of you who are here, we want to say something. You have made you've made a commitment to this life experience that you have not appreciated fully. You have not really understood the importance of that, because see, you wouldn't have actually been here unless that were true. Now, others of you will hear this later and you'll be attracted to it at a different time and it'll be right for your part in your journey. But we just wanted to bring in that extra little spark of encouragement for those here.
Okay. Any questions, comments, anything anyone would like to add? It seems we are complete.
The energies are extremely heavy. So we want to just leave you with this. Things are accelerating. So it is not unnatural. It's going to be, it will be part of the process for you to feel really out of sorts, maybe physically in your bodies and all of that. Things are changing. You're moving into different atmospheric pressure, let's say. And so you're going to feel a little off balance and all of that. It's perfect. We want you to understand, and the chaos that you'll see, because there will be so many others not understanding what's happening. So the mix of that energy might be a little chaotic, but as we told you, chaos always breeds unity. But we are so pleased with what you're doing, and more of you are going to do more, and we're thrilled, and we love you so much. Thank you, and we are complete.